The first sound that cut through the cold air wasn't the wind, nor the hum of my engine cooling down after a long haul. It was a cry, thin, desperate, and trembling like it was afraid of its own echo. I wasn't supposed to stop there, not on that stretch of Highway 67, where the night felt heavier than usual and the fog crawled low like a living thing. But that cry pinned me to the moment. It pulled something out of me I didn't know still existed. You ever wonder what you'd do if the world put a life in your hands when you least expected? I found out that night. I stepped out of my truck, boots sinking slightly into the wet gravel. Diesel clung to the air, the kind of cold that seeps straight to your bones pressed against my jacket. And then I saw him, no bigger than a grocery bag, lying on a thin blue blanket right at the edge of the ditch. A baby, alone, crying like every breath hurt. I knelt beside him, and before I even touched that tiny shoulder, he looked straight at me with watery eyes and whimpered, "Don't let him find me. Babies don't form sentences. Babies don't speak." Yet those words hit me like a punch to the chest. My breath froze, my throat sealed. I looked around, darkness on both sides. No lights, no car, no tracks leading away, just emptiness, and that voice, that impossible voice. I picked him up, expecting warmth, but he was cold, lighter than he should have been, trembling like a leaf in a storm. I held him close, and his little fingers clung to my jacket like it was the last safe thing in the world. That's when I felt it, the unmistakable prickling of being watched. The highway behind me was a straight line swallowed by fog. My headlights carved only a narrow tunnel of visibility through the darkness. The silence around us wasn't natural anymore. It felt staged, like everything was holding its breath. I tightened my grip on the baby and whispered back, voice shaking more than I liked, "Who's looking for you, little guy?" He didn't cry. He didn't shiver. He just pressed his face into my shirt like he was hiding from something standing right behind me. I walked backward toward the truck, every instinct screaming at me to move faster. The baby's heart hammered against my chest, and mine wasn't far behind. I opened the passenger door and placed him gently on the seat, wrapping my old flannel around him. The moment I turned back toward the road, I saw it, a shadow moving at the edge of the fog, tall and slow, like it didn't need to rush because it already knew where we were. My hand shook as I reached for the door handle. Something about that figure felt wrong in a way I still don't have the right words for. It wasn't the size, it wasn't the stillness, it was the intent. The air around it felt colder, meaner, like it wasn't walking toward us but claiming something it believed belonged to it. My breath fogged the air as I pulled myself into the cab, slamming the door a second before the shadow shifted again. And if you've ever wondered what keeps a truck driver awake at night, it's not the miles or the loneliness or the long, dark stretches where you might not see another soul for hours. It's the moments when the road hands you a life and demands an answer. And this story, this night, is one of those moments. If you're still here listening to me, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Not for me. For the kid who didn't ask to be left alone on a highway. For the drivers who never turn away from danger. For the stories that warn others. Stories most people never get to hear. This one matters. More than you know. I turned the key and the engine rumbled awake like an old beast shaking off sleep, but the moment the headlights cut deeper into the fog, the shadow vanished. Not walked away, not faded, gone, like it had never been there at all. That kind of disappearance isn't natural. I've spent most of my life on open roads, seen things I still struggle to explain, but that chilled me in a way I wasn't prepared for. The baby whimpered again, softer now, like he knew the danger wasn't over. I eased the truck back onto the lane, hands tight around the wheel. Every bump in the pavement felt amplified, every sound sharper. The baby kept staring at the windshield, his eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. I tried to reassure him, whispering my name, Elias Ward, like it mattered, like it meant something in the presence of whatever had been waiting for him out there. But he didn't look at me, not once. His gaze stayed forward, like he was tracking something moving in the dark. Fog swallowed the mirrors, turning the world behind us into a blank sheet of white, the kind of white that hides anything. Too much silence filled the cab, and then, in that silence, a soft tapping came from above, not on the window, on the roof of the truck. A slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap. I froze, breath caught halfway in my throat. Nothing should be up there. No branches, no birds, no debris, just metal and night. The baby pressed himself tighter into the flannel and let out a tiny whine, like he knew exactly what made that sound. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I lowered the window just enough to hear the outside air, and the cold slapped me instantly. The tapping stopped. For a moment there was nothing but the hum of the engine. Then something dragged across the roof, long, slow, scraping metal on metal, that sent a shiver down my spine. I rolled the window up fast and scanned the fog again. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. I tried to tell myself it was nerves, imagination, the cold playing tricks on me, but every instinct screamed that someone, or something, was following us, hunting us, and the baby, barely big enough to hold, seemed to understand that far more clearly than I did. I tightened my grip on the wheel and pushed the truck faster, cutting through the fog like a knife. The road stretched ahead into an endless white tunnel, and I felt trapped in it, sealed away from the world I knew. But one thought kept repeating in my head, louder than the engine, louder than my heartbeat. Whoever was searching for that baby wasn't done yet, and as I tried to outrun the fog and whatever lived inside it, I couldn't shake the feeling that this night was only getting started, and the choice I'd made, to pick up that child, to defy the darkness, was about to test every ounce of courage I had left. I kept my foot steady on the pedal, trying to convince myself that speed meant safety, even though a part of me knew it didn't matter. Some dangers don't care how fast your wheels turn. The fog thinned for just a moment, enough for me to see the outline of an old service station coming up on the right, one of those forgotten places with a single flickering bulb and a sign too rusty to read. I didn't want to stop. God knows I didn't. But the baby's breathing changed, becoming faster, almost panicked, and I felt him pulling at my sleeve with tiny, trembling fingers. He kept staring at the passenger side mirror, eyes wide with something deeper than fear. I slowed the truck and pulled into the gravel lot. The moment the engine idled, the baby went silent. Not calm, not relieved, just silent, as if holding his breath. I stepped out, scanning the station. The building looked abandoned, windows boarded, paint peeling like old scabs. But something made the hair on my arm stand up. The door wasn't fully shut. It moved slightly with the wind, creaking back and forth like someone had passed through moments earlier. I walked toward it, boots crunching on broken glass. My flashlight cut across the lot, and that's when I saw him. A man crouched in the ditch beside the station, half hidden behind a dead bush. His clothes were soaked, his hands muddy, his breath visible in the cold air. What froze me wasn't his appearance, it was his face, pale, stretched tight, fixed in terror. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring behind me, eyes shaking like he was watching something step right up to my back. My instincts roared at me to turn around, but my feet stayed planted. The man, thin, gaunt, maybe in his 40s, mouthed something soundless at first, as if his voice had been stolen. Then he forced the words out, trembling. Where is the child?" His voice cracked like he hadn't spoken in days. "Did you hear him? Did he speak to you?" The question made my stomach twist. No one should have known what that baby said. No one. I stepped back, pulse hammering. "How do you know about him?" I asked, voice low but firm. The man shook his head violently and clutched his chest as if expecting something to burst from the shadows. "He's not supposed to talk," he whispered, voice breaking. "He's not supposed to be alive." Every muscle in my body went cold at those words. The fog behind me thickened again, swallowing the edges of the truck, making the world shrink down to only the glow of my flashlight. The man pointed a trembling finger toward the fog behind my rig. "If you picked him up, if you touched him, he'll come for you too." His voice grew harsher, desperate. "He always comes back. He doesn't stop, not until he finds what he lost." Before I could ask who he was, the man's gaze snapped upward, eyes going wide with raw, choking terror. "Run," he rasped. "Run now." And that's when I heard it. Footsteps in the gravel behind me, slow, heavy, intentional. Someone was standing between me and my truck. I didn't turn around at first. Turning around felt like inviting something too real, too dark to face. Instead, I listened. The footsteps weren't rushed or clumsy. They were measured, spaced evenly, as if whoever, whatever was behind me had all the time in the world. Gravel shifted under a heavy weight. Each step landed with certainty, like the ground itself recognized the intruder and trembled under him. My breath fogged the air again, trembling with the cold and something heavier than fear. The man in the ditch slid deeper into the mud, his body folding into itself, hiding his face with shaking hands. He kept repeating the same words under his breath like a prayer with no God left to hear it. "He found him. He found him. He found him." Every repetition scraped deeper into my nerves. I tightened my jaw, fingers curling into fists, and forced myself to turn around. Slowly, carefully, hoping for a person, a drunk, a random traveler, anything human, anything explainable. But the fog clung thick over the parking lot, shaping itself into vague contours that swayed with the wind. No face, no silhouette, just the crunch of deliberate steps, closing the distance one heartbeat at a time. I backed up toward the ditch, trying to position myself so I wasn't exposed, so I had at least one barrier between us. My boots slipped on the loose gravel, and I caught myself against the cold metal siding of the station. The baby inside the truck let out a soft cry, barely a whimper, but enough to slice the air in half. The footsteps stopped instantly. Silence spread so thick it felt alive, pressing into my ears until they rang. My chest tightened as I whispered, "You hear that?" to the man in the ditch. He didn't look up. He didn't need to. His body shook harder, teeth chattering like they were trying to escape his mouth. Then something scraped along the side of my truck. Not metal hitting metal, something softer. A drag, like fingertips tracing the length of the door. I could almost feel the trail they left behind, a cold line drawn through steel and paint. I took a step forward. I had to get to the truck. Had to get to the baby. Whatever was out there wanted him. The man in the ditch hissed, "Don't touch him. Don't let it see you near him." But the thought of leaving that child alone for even a second was worse than whatever waited in the fog. I pushed away from the station wall and moved toward the truck, breath shaking, legs stiff. The fog swallowed my lower body as I walked, pulling at my steps like it didn't want me to reach the door. My hand found the handle, cold enough to numb my fingers, and I yanked it open. The baby's eyes were wide, glowing faintly with the reflection of the dashboard lights, and he stared past me, past my shoulder, toward the fog outside. "He's here," the baby whispered. Not through lips, through sound that wasn't sound, through a voice that brushed directly against my mind like a cold hand. I slammed the door shut and pressed my back against it, breathing hard. The footsteps started again, closer, slow, certain, the kind of steps made by someone who didn't need to rush because they were already home. I gripped the door handle and felt the truck shudder slightly, as if something massive had brushed against it on the other side. My heart jackhammered in my chest, and I realized that whatever was looking for the child wasn't just a man or a monster. It was something older, something patient, something that believed the baby belonged to it. And the road, the fog, the night, they weren't going to help me hide him anymore. The truck vibrated under my hands like it was holding its breath with me. I could feel the tension in the steering wheel, the engine, the metal frame, like the whole machine sensed the danger surrounding it. I reached over and touched the baby's small shoulder, trying to reassure him, but it felt more like I was convincing myself I still had control over any part of this night. His tiny fingers curled around the edge of my jacket sleeve, and for the first time, his eyes met mine. They were too aware, too knowing for a child who couldn't possibly be more than a few months old. The fog pressed against the windshield, thickening as if something large moved inside it. Shapes formed and dissolved, never fully revealing themselves. The footsteps outside circled the truck again, slow and methodical, like someone inspecting a prize they planned to reclaim. Every sound felt amplified, the crunch of gravel beneath invisible feet, the cold wind brushing across the mirrors, the faint metallic groan from the roof. My mind replayed the man's words. He always comes back. But who was he, and why was a baby the center of all this? I leaned closer to the baby. "What is he?" I whispered, not expecting an answer. Not from him, but his little hand tightened, gripping my sleeve with surprising strength. His voice, quiet, warm, achingly human, echoed not in the cab but inside my head. "He wants me because I survived." The meaning hit me hard. Survived what? Survived who? The air around us shifted then, like pressure building before a storm, and the fog outside began swirling in slow, unnatural spirals. A deep metallic thud hit the side of the truck, making the entire cab shake. Not like something punched it, more like something huge leaned against it, testing it, claiming it. I reached for the ignition, ready to push this truck as far and fast as it would go, but the baby tugged my sleeve again. "If you drive now, he'll follow," he whispered inside my mind. "He'll never stop." There was a heavy truth in those words that made my chest tighten. Running wasn't going to save us. It would only drag this nightmare across every mile of road behind me. I swallowed hard and forced myself to look toward the driver's side window. Slowly, the fog parted just enough to reveal a silhouette, tall, unnaturally still, with arms hanging too low at its sides, its head tilted as though listening, studying the truck like a predator deciding where to strike. My breath stuck in my throat. I'd seen danger before, men with guns, drunks with knives, desperate souls with nothing left to lose. But this thing radiated a colder kind of intention, ancient, focused, certain. The baby trembled, pressing himself deeper into the flannel, his small face scrunching as if a memory, the kind no child should have, was clawing its way back into his mind. "He made me," the baby whispered, but I escaped. Those words slammed into me like a blow. I needed answers. I needed to understand what kind of world I had stepped into by stopping on that highway. Before I could speak again, the shadow outside stepped closer, its form breaking through the fog with a slowness that felt like deliberate torment. My instincts roared, louder than fear itself. If I didn't make a choice now, I'd lose the chance forever. I turned the key. The engine growled awake like it knew the stakes. And as the truck shook from the force of its own awakening, I whispered back to the baby, "Then I guess we're both survivors, and I'm not giving you back." Little did I know, that was the moment everything truly began. The moment the engine roared, the silhouette outside froze. Not like an animal startled by noise. Not like a man reconsidering his next move. No, it froze the way a predator does when it realizes its prey is trying to flee. The fog thickened around it, bending inward as if drawn to its presence, pulled by some gravity I didn't understand. My heart hammered so violently against my ribs that my hands shook on the wheel. I could feel my own pulse thundering in my ears as I shifted into gear, tires crunching the gravel beneath us. The first lurch of the truck broke the tension for a split second. For that moment I believed we had a chance. But then, from behind us, the gravel exploded under something heavy. The sound was so forceful that the truck jolted as if slapped on the back. I slammed my foot down, sending the rig forward, the headlights slicing through the fog that now churned like a living sea. The baby curled into the seat, crying silently, mouth open but no sound escaping. Another impossible detail that made my skin crawl. The road opened ahead, but the fog didn't thin the way it should have. It stayed thick, moving with us, swallowing entire sections of the highway before the beams could illuminate them. Each second felt like driving deeper into the unknown. In the side mirror, something flickered, a tall, twisted shadow keeping pace just outside the beam of the lights, as though it preferred the darkness. Its movements weren't natural, too smooth, too steady, like gliding. I gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles whitening as the truck climbed a small incline. My gut churned. The baby's eyes glowed faintly in the dashboard light, reflecting something I couldn't see. He lifted his tiny hand and pointed toward the mirror, not trembling, not confused. Certain. He's not chasing you, the baby whispered inside my mind. He's chasing me. Those words hollowed my chest. They echoed in a place deeper than fear, somewhere close to instinct, the part of a man that knows when he's outmatched. A sudden thump struck the back of the trailer, hard enough to rattle the entire cab. I pressed harder on the accelerator, pushing the engine to its limit. The RPM climbed, the hum turning into a strained growl. The shadow in the mirror solidified for an instant. Elongated limbs, a bent posture, a face blurred by the fog. Then it vanished again, swallowed by the night. I tried to tell myself it was a trick of the light, my mind filling in shapes where nothing existed, but the pounding on the trailer happened again, louder, closer. The baby reached for me, tiny fingers brushing the edge of my sleeve. The moment he made contact, warmth spread up my arm, comforting, grounding. But behind that warmth was something else, a memory that wasn't mine, a dark room, a man with eyes like embers, a voice that said, "If he escapes, he will be found." I jerked my hand away in shock, but the baby's eyes were full of apology, as if he had shared something by accident. "I didn't mean to show you," he whispered, "but he marked me, and he marked everything I touch." A third slam hit the trailer, shaking the entire truck left to right. The fog churned violently behind us, forming a swirling tunnel that twisted in the wake of something colossal. I tightened my grip on the wheel, leaning forward, heart pounding with the truth I had been avoiding since I found that child. Whatever was hunting him wasn't human, and the question clawing at the back of my mind wasn't whether we could outrun it. It was whether I had already driven straight into its trap. The road ahead twisted into a narrow stretch flanked by tall pines, their branches clawing at the sky like broken fingers. My headlights carved only a thin ribbon of visibility, the fog swallowing everything else. Every instinct in me said to turn back, but where would I go? Behind us was the thing that wanted the child. Ahead was a darkness thick enough to hide anything. The baby turned his head toward me, his breathing shaky, as if he sensed the shift in the air before I did. A chill ran through the cab, not the cold outside but something internal, a pressure, like the atmosphere itself grew heavier. The baby clutched the flannel tighter around himself and whispered directly into my mind, "He knows where we're going." The words were soft, almost drowned by the rumble of the engine, but they echoed with certainty. That meant only one thing. We weren't choosing the road anymore. The road was choosing us. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep my eyes forward. Branches loomed overhead like a tunnel, blocking out what little moonlight there was. The fog swirled beneath them, drifting low and thick, curling around the truck's wheels like fingers made of smoke. Then, without warning, the engine sputtered, just once, a tiny hiccup that sent ice crawling up my spine. I checked the gauges, fuel, oil pressure, temperature, all normal, too normal, like the truck was pretending everything was fine. The baby began to whimper, not loudly, but with a sound that cut straight through me, thin and frightened, like he was remembering something he desperately wanted to forget. I reached over to comfort him, but the moment my hand touched his arm, an image flashed in my mind, a cabin deep in the woods lit only by fire, a man standing over a crib, his face obscured, but his silhouette unmistakable, tall, thin, head tilted slightly, as if listening for something weak enough to break, the same posture I had seen in the fog. I jerked my hand away, chest heaving. Whatever that memory was, it wasn't mine. And it wasn't just a vision. It felt sent, like someone wanted me to know exactly what I was up against. I pressed down on the accelerator, trying to force the truck faster, but the engine resisted, not failing, not choking, resisting, like a force outside the physical world was pressing against it, pushing back. Branches scraped the trailer, long strokes that sounded too deliberate to be wind. The fog moved in unnatural currents around the tires, swirling upward in twisting spirals, and then I realized something that made my breath stop. The forest on both sides of the road was getting thicker. The trees were closing in, not naturally spaced, but positioned tighter and tighter as if forming walls around us. A narrowing corridor. We weren't driving freely anymore. We were being guided. And deep inside the fog ahead, I saw a light flicker. Orange, faint, distant. Firelight. The same firelight from the memory the baby had shown me. My pulse thundered as the truth settled heavy in my chest. The trap wasn't forming behind us. The trap was waiting in front of us. The orange glow pulsed through the fog like a heartbeat, faint at first, then growing brighter with every yard we covered. My stomach twisted. Fire in the middle of a forested stretch at this hour wasn't an accident. Someone built it. Someone was waiting beside it. And the deeper we drove, the more the air changed, growing warmer, thicker, laced with the dry tang of burning wood. The baby buried his face into the flannel as if the light itself hurt him to look at. As we approached, the fog thinned just enough to reveal a clearing ahead, a perfect circle carved into the forest, the trees bending outward like they were being held back by something unseen. In the center burned a low, controlled fire. Not a bonfire, not a campfire, a ritual fire. Flames moved strangely, too steady, like they weren't fighting the wind, like they were being fed by something other than wood. My hands tightened around the wheel, the leather groaning softly under the pressure. The moment the truck's headlights hit the clearing, the engine cut out, dead. No sputter, no warning, just silence. The entire cab went dark, the dashboard lights flickering once before they died. The baby whimpered, fingers clenching around my sleeve, trembling with something far worse than cold. I turned the key. Nothing. Tried again. Silence. The truck wasn't failing. It was being turned off, controlled, by the same force that had been hunting us since the highway. Outside, something moved between the trees. Not fast, not frantic, slow, deliberate. Each step matched the cadence of the footsteps I'd heard back at the service station. My breath hitched when I saw the silhouette approach the fire. Tall, too tall, arms long enough to sway slightly at his sides. His head tilted the same unnatural angle as before. The firelight flickered across his shape, but no details emerged. No face, just emptiness where a face should be. The baby pressed his forehead against my arm, tears slipping silently down his cheeks. He didn't need to speak. The fear trembling in his small body told me everything. That thing wasn't just coming for him. It knew him. It remembered him. And the firelit clearing was where it intended to take him back. The figure raised one long arm, palm open toward the truck, and I felt the temperature inside the cab shift. The air grew heavy, thick enough to choke. The windshield fogged instantly, not from cold, but from something pressing against the glass from the outside. The pressure made the frame creak. Shadows crawled across the dashboard like living veins, reaching toward the baby. And in that suffocating silence, the baby spoke again inside my mind, weaker this time, almost breaking. He made me in fire, and he wants to finish what he started. His words hit me like a steel hook, yanking every thought out of my mind. Made in fire, not born, not abandoned, created. My chest tightened as I stared at the silhouette standing by the flames, its shape warping with the heat, as if the fire itself recognized him. The fog didn't dare cross into the clearing. It curled at the edges like it feared being burned. Even nature seemed to know this wasn't a man. The figure stepped closer, and the air inside the cab rippled with each movement, pressure waves rolling through the glass, through my bones. I felt my muscles locking up one by one, like invisible hands were pinning me to the seat. The baby pressed himself against me, trembling so violently that tiny spasms shook through his body. He curled into me, begging without words for protection I wasn't sure I had the strength to give. The fire outside rose higher, brightening the clearing, and for the first time, I saw a glimpse of a face, barely visible in the shifting light. Pale skin stretched too tight, eyes glowing faintly, like embers buried in ash, a mouth that didn't move but seemed carved into permanent hunger. The thing lifted its head, sniffing the air like a hound catching a scent, and when its gaze swept across the truck, landing directly on the baby, the flames bent toward us as if reaching. Something snapped inside me. Fear turned into something sharper, heavier, anger, not at the baby, not at whatever nightmare stood outside, but at the idea of letting something so small, so fragile, be dragged into the darkness by a creature that had no trace of humanity left. I wrapped my arm around the baby, holding him close, shielding him even though the steel walls around us were already groaning under the pressure. Then the figure stepped fully into the light, and the truth became unbearable. He wasn't walking. His feet didn't touch the ground. He floated inches above the dirt, drifting forward like carried by a current no wind could create. When he raised his hand again, the fire contorted, coiling upward into a shape that almost resembled fingers. Flames reached toward the truck, inching closer, scorching the air itself. The baby whimpered, his voice breaking inside my skull with a plea so honest it shattered me. Please, don't let him take me back. I tightened my hold on him, fire blazing outside, shadows crawling inside, and every instinct in me screamed the same message from every corner of my soul. If I didn't act now, neither of us would survive the night. I don't know where the strength came from. Maybe from the road, from the miles that carved resilience into my bones. Maybe from every life I'd seen lost because someone hesitated. Or maybe it came from the tiny heartbeat pressed against my chest, begging me not to give up. Whatever it was, it surged through me all at once, breaking the invisible weight that held me down. I grabbed the wheel with one hand and slammed my other fist against the dashboard, shouting through clenched teeth, "You're not taking him." The truck answered before the world did. Lights flickered. The dashboard hummed weakly. The engine coughed like a dying animal, then roared back to life with a fury I've never heard before. The sudden burst of power shattered the pressure inside the cab, blowing back the shadows clinging to the glass. Outside, the creature's head snapped sharply toward the truck, the fire around him flaring tall in anger, flames twisting into spirals that clawed at the sky. I floored the accelerator. Gravel exploded behind us as the truck lunged forward, cutting through the clearing like a freight train. The creature slid sideways, dragged by the force of the truck's movement, but he didn't fall. He didn't stumble. He reached, his arms stretched toward the cab, fingers elongating unnaturally, joints bending backward like broken branches. His fingertips grazed the glass, just barely, but enough to leave a burning smear of scorched black ash. The fire behind us collapsed inward, sucked into itself like breathing in reverse. The trees shook violently as we tore through the narrowing corridor, branches snapping against the trailer, metal screaming under the assault. The fog gave chase, swirling behind us in a furious spiral, carrying with it the faint echo of something inhuman calling the baby's name. But the truck pushed harder, faster, like it knew this wasn't just a drive anymore. It was a rescue. At the end of the forest stretch, the fog peeled away as if cut clean by an invisible blade. The highway opened wide beneath the moonlight, air finally clear, the world no longer suffocating. I didn't slow down, not until we were miles away, until the trees were nothing but shadows in the rearview mirror. Only then did I look at the baby, small, exhausted, but alive. His tiny hand reached up, touching my chin with a warmth that felt painfully human. "Thank you," he whispered inside my mind, voice faint but real. I exhaled, a long breath I felt I'd been holding for the entire night. Maybe I saved him. Maybe I just delayed something inevitable. I don't know. But I do know this. Sometimes the road chooses you to carry a weight you never asked for, and sometimes you carry it anyway, because it's the right thing to do. So, if you made it to this moment, if you felt the fear, the fight, the fire, then stick with me. Like the road, these stories don't end here. Hit that like button, subscribe, follow this journey. Out here, justice doesn't come easy. But as long as I'm driving, I'll keep fighting for the ones who can't fight for themselves. And who knows, the next nightfall might bring another soul who needs a truck driver willing to stand between them and the darkness. And when that night comes, I'll be ready.